Gotta get the energy up.
I gotta
Hello,
work on that, I guess.
hello. Welcome to Virtual Selling Live. And on a twist of events, I have my coworker Caitlin.
Hi,
She's going to be
guys.
doing the Virtual Selling Live with us. Caitlin, what do
Yes,
you do at
yeah.
KO? Who are you?
Gosh, I've been with Kim since the first year of KO. So I've moved through different roles. Currently, I just came back from a mat leave, so I'm become Kim's executive assistant, which I love because I love just having access to everything of hers and scheduling all of hers. She likes to say I'm her boss, which I kind of agree with at times. So it's a nice role to be in. So yeah, I enjoy it.
I refer to you as the VP of everything. Anything and everything that gets in Kim's way, Caitlin's on it.
Yeah, and it's always like I keep her on track of things. When she starts to get distracted, I have to like make sure her schedule's right. And yeah, so I get a little taste of everything. I know Kim and I have a really good relationship personally, so it's become more of a friendship sometimes. So it's always nice, and she's seriously the best boss you can have. So I really enjoy it and working for her.
Thank you for saying that. If
I
Kim's
know.
watching,
Hopefully she's
if
listening in
Kim's watching,
Winnipeg.
it only cost me $50. I'll submit that later.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, today's topic, we're going to be diving into something that is becoming forced to happen. And I remember the days of going downtown Calgary and, going from boardroom to boardroom or whining and dining clients and, showing up with a bottle of whiskey and going out to site and donuts and coffee. That was just how
Yeah.
business was done. It was done face to face with a handshake.
Oh, completely. Yeah. Like, definitely, I think that's the way of the past. If you look at like COVID completely switched everyone's game, and now it is all about social selling. So it's how to get with these times. And we were talking earlier that even being in early 30s, I still am behind on social media. I can do basic things, but do I know all the features for everything? No. Do I feel like I need to relearn LinkedIn. I need to relearn Instagram, TikTok. Everyone's talking about this TikTok. I'm like, I've watched it maybe twice. And that's bad because I'm
Yeah, me
like, it
too.
makes me feel old that I don't know how to use these technologies. But I did not grow up with TikTok. I did not grow up with Instagram. They kind of came about. And same with LinkedIn. I'm still learning everything that needs to be done on LinkedIn. And it is become the new social hub because it's kind of become similar to Facebook and Instagram, but then for work, right? Like you want to include your
Mm-hmm.
personal stuff so people get to know you and you get a relationship with people, but then it is business related. So it's interesting to see when people say like LinkedIn, don't put your personal stuff on there. And I completely disagree because if I wanting to get to know someone, I want to know that they just had a baby. I want to know that they just celebrated their birthday and how did they do it. Otherwise, it's just someone that you're going through and you're like, I don't know this person, but I'll like their stuff. You know what I mean? Like you
Mm-hmm.
want to get to know the person. So when people say LinkedIn shouldn't be your personal information, well, then what is it?
People forget that a lot of business is built on trust. And trust
Hmm.
is not something you can be rushed. And the beauty of social media is it lifts that curtain that lets people into your life, both into likability and credibility.
Right.
We like people like ourselves. It's the
Yeah.
likability bias. And so, if Caitlin posts great content, I'm going to follow Caitlin. And
Hmm.
then if Caitlin posts really great, relevant information, well, guess what? I'm probably going to listen and I'm going to do something about it. And this is the transition that we're seeing with people moving to social media is it's just become a preference. Back in the day, even not even that long ago, 10, 20 years ago,
Hmm.
salespeople were the conduit of information. And that is
Yeah.
how all of us got. I used to love talking to salespeople because you finally got your questions answered, or you're in that uncomfortable spot where you just didn't know enough so you could ask. But it
Hmm.
feels like the world is flipped. And so now people are doing a lot of their research before they ever talk to us. And so when would you rather go and beyond that? Would you rather be the source of information and know you be that first insight? Or do you want to wait and hope and pray that you can snag that 3% that are in the market ready to buy by, using connect and sell and all these different,
Mhm.
traditional cold call email routines. Don't get me wrong, they work, but it's not the only way.
Right. So someone who doesn't know LinkedIn, like what should we be doing? Because like I said, that's me. I basically am learning LinkedIn for the first time again. I've had it forever. But I haven't really used it properly. I've had a profile. I've tried to make connections. But like I said to you, I need to start posting again. I need to start making new connections, but I don't even know where to begin. Like it seriously seems so daunting. Like the task of it seems like another full-time job.
Yeah, and it can be if you're not careful because it's easy to let yourself wander on LinkedIn. And so let's say you own a manufacturing company, you're in Industry 4.0, you're dealing with automation, you're building electronics. Why? Why would you use it? What would be the real
Mhm.
reason? Well, people instantly will go, well, they're doing social outreach. And yes, social outreach is powerful because you can get, you basically now have access to everyone fast. You don't need the yellow pages anymore to figure out who to
Yeah.
call, right? But the problem is, why would they want to talk to you? So we actually got to take a couple steps back. People use social media to link with their peers for
Mhm.
social proof to go and ask the questions and do the things they never could before. And so, hey Ashwin, hey Kim, hey Phil.
I love that Kim's watching. Now makes me nervous. The boss is watching.
And so people, the reason why people are using LinkedIn is they're trying to build these networks, these communities, and where they can trust the information, and they're sorting and they're filtering and they're figuring out really who they can trust. And
Mhm.
that's who they're keeping close because right now there's too much information. And so we got to actually look at LinkedIn as a trusted source. Why you? But before we can do why you is we actually got to take a couple steps back to why change.
Right.
What is it that your customers don't know that if they knew would change everything? And this is how we
Mhm.
have to look at our profiles is yes, it's about us. But before that, we need to kind of take the customers on that journey of why change, why now, and then after they care enough, why us?
Well, and we've talked about like sales is not going back to the traditional way. As much as people think that it will, we're not going to be stopping in at everyone's office, grabbing that drink with them. The first thing to do is let's just, oh, you want to grab a coffee? Let's do a virtual coffee. Like I think that's the way of it's just going to be, and it's not going to change back as much as people think, oh, it's going to go back. We're going to stop in at people's offices and sell things that way. No, you're not going to anymore because one, people don't want you to anymore.
Hmm.
They would rather just grab a virtual coffee, do a meeting, 20 minutes. They don't need to leave their house if they're working remotely. They don't need to leave the office. I'm sorry, we've all kind of just gotten used to not like when we went to our strategy day and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I have to get into my car. I got to figure out traffic, parking, all this stuff we don't want to do. We just would
Yeah.
rather you want a meeting. I think your better chance of getting a meeting with someone is going to be virtually. They don't have to go anywhere. So they can do it anytime that they have free. Maybe they have 20 minutes free in the morning before their kids go off to school, or they have, that time right before supper. Then normally I wouldn't because I'd be commuting at that time. So I
Yeah.
think
And
people need to see the way of the future of, it is, you have to make that connection on LinkedIn. You have to make it personable so people are getting to know you. But then also you got to be putting out the content to be able to have that information that people are like, that's the person I'm going to go to find out the newest information on this product or on this service.
well said. Yeah. No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's not the first step, though. And I think that's what comes across so daunting. And a lot of people also tell me, well, my buyers aren't on LinkedIn. So what's the point? And that's just not true.
You're like,
Most
really? They're
companies,
not?
well, how many salespeople are on LinkedIn? Just about every
Mhm.
industry, especially in B2B sales. Salespeople are great influencers.
Yeah.
I used to love EAs, secretaries, and salespeople. There are no better sources because really, if I wanted to get on Kim's calendar, who would be the best person to call? You. And you also sort naturally anyways. Like, is this worth Kim's time?
Mhm.
Well, if I have a
Mhm.
conversation and say, "Hey, Caitlin, you know Kim better than anyone, and I want your opinion. Is this worth Kim's time?"
Yeah.
How does
And
that
that's
change the
true.
whole scenario, right?
Yeah, it's when people call through and you need to get through the gatekeeper. I've been a gatekeeper back in my past. You need to be nice to that gatekeeper, or she's not gonna give you, or they're not gonna give you the time of day. They're not gonna pass you through. They're gonna be like, I'll just send you to voicemail. You can leave a voicemail, and I know they're not gonna return it. You know what I mean? Like when people need to get to the important person, you have to go through those EAs and you have to go through that switchboard person unless
Mhm.
you think you can just get to them there directly, which LinkedIn provides you that opportunity to get to them directly, right? If you
Mhm.
are selling properly and you are making those connections, and after that connection you're making that initial message, then you are making that connection with them. I did see that someone had posted today that, do you do voice messages to people on LinkedIn? I never thought of this. Is this a thing we should be doing?
It can be. It's a pattern interrupt. And so LinkedIn gives you many different ways of getting in front of your audience in a way that stands out. But the
Mhm.
thing is, we got to take a step back and realize that we have to go and message them with something worth saying.
Right.
And so
Yeah. No,
what
I
happens is a lot
agree.
of people go to C-suite, right? And they're like, "Hey, you should really buy this," but they don't know enough to go and talk. But being able to go and do a video and show a little bit of your personality and your flair, using a video message or a voice message, which is only available through the app on your phone,
Okay.
and you can also use the app on your phone to do video. If you wanna
Mm.
use video from your computer, Vidyard's really powerful because then they get to see their
Yes.
website or their LinkedIn profile, or you can use different tricks, tips, ways to go and have show that you put the work in before you go and do that.
So my thing is, if you're watching us, do you use video or like voice messaging? I use voice messaging for my text messages sometimes, but I just didn't know it was a thing for LinkedIn. And now I'm like, oh, I guess I should be doing that. Or maybe that's something that I need to make sure Kim's working with. But I'm just like, I didn't know this was a thing. Um, so it's good to learn. Like I said, I don't know. That it is something to be used, and I'm still learning LinkedIn, so I'm like, how do I use this? And yeah, when I go through and I'm liking posts, I'm like, it becomes overwhelming, all the posts, how many should I be engaging with? And I don't
Ooh.
know all these answers.
Okay, so now you're getting on to something really hot that I
Okay,
keep
so
hearing
but
about.
Tiffany wants to know how that works for others. So I guess, like, Nick, if you got a voice message, are you more likely to listen to that and respond to the person than if you got just a typed message through LinkedIn?
So, the one thing about the voice messages is they can't once people will listen to typically the whole thing, but they won't just do it and put it off. With a text message, they might put it off because they can see it in the
Mm,
preview. But with the
yeah.
voice messages or the video messages, you can't preview it, so you have to wait. And so actually Liz that just commented sent me a voice message the other day, and I had to wait till the end of strategy to respond because I couldn't
Mm,
listen to it because I didn't have earbuds with me. And so absolutely, it has a place. It's really good for nurturing past the sale
okay.
because you can't automate it, so it is a personal touch. And there's
Mhm.
something too about hearing somebody's voice and you get the inflections that not only will instill confidence, but it's a better, taste of you than just text. And then video is even a step up from that when it makes sense.
Right, my only thing with video is how to make it authentic and not like, I don't know, I get this weird creepy feel from it. So I'm like, you have to make it like just authentic instead of being like over the top. And the voice one I think is great. Like it sets you apart. And yes, it makes it so that you have a voice with the name instead of just like some typed text.
Mhm.
I completely like that idea. I didn't know of it. Yeah. Yeah, the downside of it is you do have to wait. You can't answer it right away, right? Like you have to, like Liz said, you have to like have the time to do it. You have to be able to be in that space. Like sometimes if your kid's running around and you're like, I can't even freaking hear this right now. Like stop so I can listen to this voice message, right? So I think that would be the downside of it. But the plus is it's setting you apart from everyone else. Like, you think of it, if you're going into an interview, what's the one thing you want to do? You want to set yourself apart from everyone else. You want to make yourself memorable, right? So maybe this is the way to make it so that they're like, oh, it's not just another message in my inbox. It's, you know, it's, this is Elizabeth, right? Or when I get to talk to Caitlin, this is what she's going to sound like. So yeah, I can see it as a plus and a negative. Definitely, I think all the features are pluses and negatives. But how do you know, like, when you're going through like the different posts, like, how long should you be engaging with people on LinkedIn? Like, what is your goal?
So it's not how long, it's who and how much. And
Mm,
I just want to really clarify that because that was a big mistake I made early is I would just spend stupid amounts of time on LinkedIn, but
mhm.
talking to the wrong people. So there's really just two that you should be focusing on, maybe three. One, peers,
Right.
but they should not be the dominant force. And then that's to go and kind of flex your expertise, build up that knowledge base, figure out what sources. 'Cause same thing what we're talking about. What tech are they using? What
Mhm.
strategies are they using? And it's
Mhm.
building up that knowledge base.
Right.
Second one is influencers. Who influences deals?
Mhm.
And three, decision makers. But
Right.
if you're spending all your time on peers, this is how social media gets a bad reputation because you're just talking, you're just
Yeah.
socializing. But when you're
Yes.
commenting on only 5 or 10 posts a day, and think long form, think generous, think a major
Mhm.
compliment. When somebody writes a big, beautiful comment on your post that basically compliments what you're doing and it dives deeper and asks a bigger question, it feels good. And if
Right.
that knowledge is something that was hard to get or it requires insight, now they're hooked. They'll follow you, they'll connect with you, and it's starting to build a relationship. So instead of going out and just shooting them a connection request, commenting is the first place everybody should start because by the time you've done 10, 20, 30 days of commenting, only doing 5 a day, think of how much insight you're going to gain about those decision makers,
Right.
about those
Do you
influencers.
do you think then you need Sales Navigator? You need these, like,
Hmm.
you need these kind of like background materials to help you kind of filter. Like, I'm still understanding all these things, right? So I'm like, do you need that? Is that something you need to invest in, or can you just do your research and know who to be talking to rather than using some of these like background programs, right?
Sales Navigator will triple your efficiency, if not more,
Mm,
because you can sort by lists. If you know who your ICP is, you know what accounts you should be targeting, what types of companies, and you can break it down into the smallest of. So every account list should be no more than 50. That's the way I like to do it because when LinkedIn sees that something changed in that account list, it sends you a ping. Hey, look at they're hiring more than usual. Hey, look, they're growing fast.
mhm.
Hey, look. And it gives you
Hmm.
updates that you can go and reach out to them. Hey, look, somebody got promoted. Hey, look.
Yep.
And so when you build out these account lists with Sale Navigator, it allows you to go a step further. And then with those account lists, so say you want to focus on industrial manufacturing. Of that industrial manufacturing, they need to be,
Mhm.
20 million to 100 million in revenue. They need to have, at least 50 to 200 employees. And you're going through this list, and they're positively growing. So those are your basics.
Yeah.
So now that's your account lists. What you can actually do in Sales Navigator is you can sort by account list to build lead lists. So those lead lists, I'll actually target, so like industrial manufacturing, decision makers,
Right.
buyers, purchasers, and I'll name a persona. And the reason why I do this, Caitlin, is because I want to comment on just their stuff. So what I'll do is I'll sort and I'll start commenting on just those decision makers. And so I'm showing up. So once you're, top of mind is top of feed. Well, if they
Right. And it's
constantly
cutting
see
down
you
your
being
time,
generous
right?
commenting, you'll just keep
Yeah.
showing up, right? But then what happens is you can't see any of the other posts. So those lead lists, those people that you're working those accounts, you don't see anything else in Sales Navigator. So it's like, think of it putting on the blinders. There's no more
Yeah.
Facebook, there's no more other videos. You're just seeing your accounts. So think of how
Right.
much more productive you can be without all the interruptions or the shiny things. Because, cute puppy videos like I
I
posted today,
know.
I'm hoping it will get somebody's attention, but it doesn't necessarily make us productive. And so when you're
Right.
using Sales Navigator, not only can you build the list faster, do they give you prompts to touch out, like reach out to the right people, but even one of the other things is you can actually sort by who's been active on LinkedIn in the past 30 days. So if they're not
Right.
active in the past 30 days, probably says that it's just not a common tool. So
But
powerful.
then how do you okay, so you created this list and you got all your
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
Then how are you reaching out to them and not being like, "Hey, thanks for connecting." Like, what do you do? Because, everyone gets that message of, "Hey, thanks for connecting." Now you're like, are they going to respond to that? Or is that just like something that they see in their inbox every time that they connect with someone new? Right? Like, how are we setting ourselves apart? And what's that first message going to be to them instead? And then have them engage with it instead of just like archive it or delete it. Like, what are we doing different that everyone else isn't doing?
Fantastic question. And I think the answer might surprise you with people. Thanks for connecting. It's an auto generated response from LinkedIn. That's why we see it so much, but we
Okay.
still see it by less than 10% of connection requests.
Huh.
So it still stands out.
Okay. I didn't know if that's just something that everyone writes or if we should be writing something else. Um, I think it's a challenge of like, what do I write? But that's going to introduce myself, but not be like creepy and have this person be like, okay, I'm not interested. And you don't want to like pitch them sales right away. Like you want to get to know them and have those conversations with them and not just be like, I'm pitching over LinkedIn messages because that's not what it should be.
And that's why commenting so powerful, because you could have a string of 5 or 10 conversations before you connect. And so when you connect, that's almost a green light. A lot of time that'll lead to a meeting. And so what I'll do a lot of the time is when somebody connects with me, I'll say thank you and I'll ask them how they've been. Or I'll say, "Hey, you know that post that you did?" And I'll go and I was like, "I think that's a really interesting insight. What are your thoughts on
Mhm.
this?" And so
Yeah.
the biggest thing we have to focus on is that first why change, right? Why now? Why change? And so if you're talking about your category, sales, business development, something that is LinkedIn, something that they're interested in, not buying, but interested in, and something that is part of their everyday work, it's educational first, but it might also change their mind on something that's going on. And if we do this in the comments, then we actually get social proof because there'll be people that are like it or comment on it or agree with you. So their peers will support you. And see, this is when we change the game where it's just me telling you something versus our peers supporting us.
Yeah, and going back to like kind of what the initial first conversation is. Like why because this happens a lot in our program of why do we need to learn virtual selling? Why can't I just do traditional selling? Traditional versus virtual is the topic all the time. So why do I need to be using my LinkedIn for virtual? Like why is it needed? Why can't I just email someone? Why do I need to be making this into like a priority in my training? Like why do I need to learn LinkedIn?
Great question. So there's just one little neat little feature. It's a little trick that I'll teach all you guys right now. So
Yes, teach us all your tricks.
when I was a road warrior, we just got plot maps and we were told to go and hit the road and work our territory. We didn't know, we had to go and do our research and figure out who to talk to while driving.
Oh,
I can
great.
sit down in 15 minutes and figure out who to talk to, but there's even a better trick. So, what you can do is figure out some terms that people are interested in and attending events. So, you go
Hmm.
LinkedIn search, go to events for that category, and you look at what events are running, who's running it. When you register for the event, it unlocks the guest list.
Oh.
And so now you can look at everyone's profile without limitations like normally on LinkedIn, and
Mm-hmm.
you know it doesn't take email credits to message them. So you got to think to yourself, why would they want to attend this? Why are they looking at this sales training? Why do they want to learn more about LinkedIn? What could be going on? And think of how many different conversations you could start from message 1 that would change the way they see you.
Right.
So
No.
there's little
Yeah.
things and that's free.
Yes. Okay. So definitely a feature that we need to know because that's not something that we just all of a sudden, of course, know, right? Like there's all these little tricks in LinkedIn. Everyone knows go on, create your profile, connect with people, engage with people on posts and send them messages. But like, what else is the little background things that we need to know about LinkedIn? Like I'm still learning everything.
The biggest one is you need to build your audience of people that need to hear what you have to say. It's the biggest downfall. So many people start posting content too early. And so what it actually does is when you're posting content and it's information first, insight first, as you're adding these people to your as connections, it also the algorithm actually bumps you up in their feed. And by
Oh.
sending that thank you message, it bumps them back up in their feed. And when you have a conversation with them, it bumps them up in your feed. So there's actually this
Hmm.
thing called the social selling index, which all of you could pull up, and it actually gives you a score. And one of the things in there is relationships
Oh.
because they want you to nurture relationships and have
Hmm.
conversations with people, and they reward you by becoming top of feed.
Oh gosh. Okay.
And so if
Didn't
you're
know
using
this.
these sales navigator lists, you're commenting, 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 taking those comments and turning it into really high value posts, and or polls are really good too because polls can give you insight and you can create that polarity where they're like, are you on this side or are you on this side? Like I did one yesterday was,
Hmm.
should you like your salespeople or should they just be really good? What's more important? But then I actually started a conversation and
Gosh, that
I got
question's
over
a hard
100 connection
I don't know how I
requests.
would answer that, Nick. I don't know how I would answer that.
It's hard, but that's why I do it because more people will respond. But the point isn't to sell them. The point is to earn their respect by having a good conversation and asking meaningful questions that respect their knowledge.
I have to say I love polls. I seriously love polls on LinkedIn. Like I do. And when people post a poll that's like, should we do less polls? I'm like, no, I like my polls. Like I'm one of those people like I think it's just so easy to engage with them to just comment on their poll. I don't need to write a physical comment if I see my answer there. And it's a way that they can engage with so many people because it's quick and easy. So people can
Hmm.
engage on it and it's not like I have to spend time typing out my comment. I can just answer the poll and then they get the responses that they need to generate what topic they're going to do, right? Like
Hmm.
um everyone such a common poll on LinkedIn is are you working from home? Are you doing hybrid? Are you working in the office? Do you miss it? Like so I think we find out a lot of information from these polls that has it's very vital information that we need to know for our content or what that person's looking for information on.
Yeah.
So I think definitely the polls are important on LinkedIn and I'm learning this and I think the videos and funny gifs are like gonna engage with people and they're gonna lock them in instead of you can't always just write a post and not have anything in it but words. Like I think um sometimes people don't have time to read all of it, right? Like I'm gonna
Hmm.
read the first paragraph and be like, oh God, I can't go on further. Like I need to keep going.
But you also got to go back to what is trust built on?
Hmm.
Likability, credibility. So your content has to be about what makes you likable. How are you like them, or what is something that they'll like being a parent, brewing beer. Like I can pick different things that it it'll resonate with some people, but not everyone. But that's okay. The
Hmm.
problem comes when we try to satisfy everyone, and that kind of even leads into when should you be reaching out? That's a tough
Yeah.
one too. Is when would you talk to people? And most people just say early and often. And that is a good strategy, like, if you're reaching out and commenting and building that rapport with them before you have that meeting, it's good because 'cause they'll get a good taste of who you are, so they'll trust you for that meeting. But there's actually really good times, especially in sales. Did they just go through a funding round? Or did
Yeah.
somebody just get a promotion?
Right.
And I know Kim is really good at this. She'll watch on Sales Navigator when somebody gets a promotion because it's the time where they genuinely need our help because
Yeah.
they are hired to have an impact. And it's something like 80 to 95% of the money that they're investing happens within the first 90 days while they're implementing their strategy when they start a new role.
When I think
And
it's important to engage with them. Like you can't just like someone had written yesterday on LinkedIn being like, how often should you be engaging with someone? And it's you should be, having conversations with them, but you don't need to be checking in on them all the time. You don't need to, like, if you're saying, "Hey,
Just
just
wanted to see
checking
how
in."
you were doing. What have you
Cool,
been
I'm
up
good,
to?
thanks. Like, um, like anytime that I had conversations with past students, it was like, "Hey, we talked about this deal that you were working on a few weeks ago. How did that end up going?" Like, you need to make them remember that you know them, right? Like, you
Mhm.
can't just be like, "Hey, how's it going?" "Okay, cool, I'm good." Are you being like a telemarketer? Because that's basically all they're like, right? They don't know me. I want someone who's going to talk to me that knows me.
One of the interesting things I've started to do lately, and I just like trying different things, being the guinea pig, so that when I tell people to do stuff, I can say, "Hey, I tried this and it
Tried
actually
it?
worked
Yeah.
really well."
Yeah.
And I started just following up with people that I know like my stuff all the time, and
Mhm.
I'm like, "I put this post out and I wasn't sure about it. Did you like it?
Yeah.
Was it
That's a
helpful?"
great conversation starter because then they know that you're at one, you're asking for their opinion, which n- I'd hate to say, like, but most of us like to give it. So yeah, that was a great post. I thought it was so engaging and thoughtful and whatever. You're going to have that conversation with the person. They've let their guard down already. If you're just like, "Hey, I'm just checking in," most of us are guards up and you're like, "What do you want from me?"
Mhm.
Like, are you trying to make a sale? What's your goal here? So
Mhm.
I think like making that a personal level is going to be completely different and set you aside from those people that are just bringing in those generic conversations.
And the one thing I realized in the last little bit that was it actually caught me off guard is, and I'm Kim would I'm sure would agree with, it's hard to work a deal. Like have too
Mhm.
many deals on the go at any given
Yeah,
time, but it's easy to manage relationships and keep the conversation going with people at any given time.
yeah,
And LinkedIn with the comment strategy and with using Sales Navigator, I can be talking to 200 to 500 people on any given time, no problem.
exactly.
I couldn't do that with deals. And so what
No,
happens is these people will be hearing us talk, hearing us talk, hearing us talk, and then they reach out.
yeah,
Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, why don't we sit and have a meeting? Because I feel like that would be a good thing to dive into a little deeper than just a text conversation.
yeah,
And that's how they
completely.
become pipeline.
Yeah,
And so the hardest part is figuring out that right timing. When is a good time to actually reach out for business? And the golden number seems to be somewhere between 14 and 21 days of them consuming your content.
so they
And
get
if
to know
anybody
your
has any
content.
other, sorry, I cut you off there.
So they kind of get to know your content, get to know you a bit, so that you're a person and not just another name.
Yeah, and then it compounds because then they'll like your stuff, then they'll comment
Mhm.
on your stuff. And so think of it like word of mouth, indirect word
Yep.
of mouth, because now you're getting on their friends' feeds. And
Mhm.
so LinkedIn is a slower game than other sources. And this is
Yep.
where a lot of people they try to play it too quick. And so if you're using LinkedIn properly, it takes about 30 days for it to really start to work. And after 90 days, it's crazy. But the thing is it's constant tweaks. How did I reach out to that persona? What did I say that resonated? What do I know about them now that I didn't know before? What would be really helpful to them right now as they're starting that new role? And we got to write this down. And this
Right.
is where sales really excels because we couldn't do this before. We couldn't do this at scale. And so me sitting in my computer, doing 4 meetings or like talking to 100 people, and I look at those 100 people and go through the list, you learn so much so fast that you never could before. And so it makes a huge difference.
Oh, completely. I agree.
Does anybody have any questions about LinkedIn or prospecting or anything that they'd like us to answer? We're getting close to time here. That's okay. We went through a lot.
I know. I feel like we went through a lot of like different content because I'm just like, tell me about LinkedIn because I need to learn. This is my time to learn. So I
Do you have
think
any
that
other
we hit
questions that you'd like
points.
me to answer quick before we go?
No, I feel like now I kind of know what I need to do and like more of a strategy of LinkedIn and now I can make it like actually useful instead of so daunting and like such a big task to do because I would say like I just sat there all day going through LinkedIn that I was just like my brain went to mush, and I feel like I spent too much time on it and didn't achieve enough within that time.
So if somebody reached out to us right now and they said, "Hey, Caitlin, why should I use LinkedIn?" And you had to like make a nice little quick summary of what we talked about today, what would you tell them?
LinkedIn is a way to engage with your audience and have them get to know you before you start that sales conversation. So it's creating the fact that they'll see you as a person and not just a salesperson. And it creates that relationship, and you'll start to get to know topics that they're looking to get into. You also get the chance to get to know them. One of the most important parts before you sell to someone is get to know them and their company. So this gives you the chance to get to know their company, get to know them, and get to know them on a personal level, that now you can have that conversation with them outside of sales. So it's not just
Hmm.
like, I'm this person trying to sell you stuff. I'm getting to know you and I'm knowing what you need. And then I can provide that service to you.
Great summary.
Okay.
And one thing I do also love is that you can talk to multiple decision makers and influencers at the same
Yeah.
time.
Oh,
And so the company
completely.
might get to know you before you talk to them. So,
Yep.
people have been watching Kim for 6 months or a year, and then they book a meeting with her. And
Yep.
that is a beautiful place to be in. So
Oh,
thank you
completely.
very much, Caitlin. I really appreciate all your questions. You had a lot more for me than I thought, and it made it
Yeah,
really
sorry.
exciting. No, nothing to be sorry for. It's always interesting to hear what people are interested in. And
Yep.
guys, this is a really important thing to consider is we assume things are common knowledge because we've done it so many times. And
Yep.
this is a great reminder for you when you're posting content, talk to people that don't know what you're doing, but be open and honest and not try and sell them. Caitlin, I had nothing to sell Caitlin today. So Caitlin got to ask me really good questions that I wouldn't have even considered. And
Yep.
so, this is a primer for you. Go have those open and honest conversations on LinkedIn. So that way you can post better content, you can be a better salesperson, and you can hit target. So thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
letting me join.
Absolutely, Caitlin.
Okay.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for
Thanks,
joining Virtual
guys.
Selling Live.
Bye.